holidays make quiet people feel more isolated, not more connected.
Welcome to our channel. Today, we are going to explore a topic that sits quietly in the corner of every bustling holiday party: the profound sense of isolation that often accompanies the most connected time of the year. For many, the festive season is painted as a mural of unceasing joy, loud laughter, and constant companionship. However, for those with a quieter temperament, the reality is often starkly different. Instead of feeling embraced by the crowd, many report feeling a deeper, more resonant loneliness amidst the noise. It is a paradox that we rarely discuss openly: how the pressure to be socially available can actually trigger a retreat inward, creating a chasm between the quiet individual and the celebratory world around them.
It is a profound psychological weight, Jane, and one that is often carried in silence. When we speak of this holiday isolation, we are not necessarily speaking of physical solitude. We are speaking of emotional distance. For the contemplative or introverted spirit, connection is usually forged in quiet, intimate moments, the deep one-on-one conversations where guards are let down. The holiday season, by contrast, prioritizes quantity over quality: large gatherings, superficial catch-ups, and a constant humming level of high-energy interaction. When a quiet person is thrust into this environment, their natural mechanism for connection is short-circuited. They are surrounded by people, yet the bridge to authentic interaction feels entirely washed away by the tide of festivities.
That distinction between physical presence and emotional connection is critical. I think we need to address the cultural script we are handed. From November to January, we are bombarded with imagery that equates noise with love. The commercials show crowded tables, shouting, and constant activity. If you are someone who finds peace in silence or needs space to process your thoughts, this cultural narrative implicitly suggests that your way of being is wrong or insufficient for the season. This creates a specific type of anxiety. It is not just that you are tired, it is that you feel fundamentally misaligned with the societal expectation of what a good holiday is supposed to look and feel like.
Precisely. This misalignment creates what we call cognitive dissonance. You are physically participating in the rituals of togetherness, yet internally you are screaming for a reprieve. This dissonance is exhausting. The quiet person is often observing the room, noticing the micro-interactions, the strain behind smiles, and the superficiality of small talk. Because they process information deeply, they are taking in a massive amount of sensory and emotional data. While others are surfing the waves of the party, the quiet person is diving to the bottom of the ocean. Being at that depth while everyone else is on the surface creates a visceral sense of separation. You are there, but you are not there in the way others expect you to be.
This brings us to a concept that I believe defines the holiday experience for many of our listeners: social performative burnout. It goes beyond simple tiredness. We are talking about the depletion of resources used to maintain a persona. During the holidays, there is an unspoken mandate to be on, to be cheerful, grateful, and extroverted. For a quiet person, this is a performance. It is acting. And like any actor who never leaves the stage, eventually the performance collapses. Can you explain what happens physiologically when someone is forced to maintain this social mask for days or weeks on end without their required restoration periods?
When we engage in forced extroversion, we are taxing the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and executive function. For an introvert, high stimulation environments trigger a faster depletion of dopamine, whereas an extrovert's nervous system might thrive on that same stimulation. When a quiet person forces this performance, they enter a state of hyperarousal followed by a crash. The brain signals a threat response. It says, "We are unsafe, we are overextended." This leads to irritability, brain fog, and a desperate, almost physical need to withdraw. The burnout is real. It is a biological signaling that the internal battery is not just empty, but damagingly drained.
It is fascinating to realize that this social battery isn't just a pop psychology metaphor. It is a neurological reality. And yet, holiday schedules rarely account for this. We stack events back to back: the office party, the family reunion, the neighborhood drop-in. For the quiet person, there is no recovery time built into the architecture of the season. I imagine this lack of recovery time contributes to the feeling of isolation, because eventually the person physically retreats. They hide in the bathroom, they leave early, or they disassociate in the corner. And when they do that, they feel guilty, which further isolates them from the joy they are supposed to be feeling.
The guilt is a massive component of this isolation, Jane. When you withdraw to save your sanity, the narrative you tell yourself is often punitive. You think, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I enjoy this like everyone else? This internal monologue is incredibly isolating. You are not only battling the external noise, but also an internal critic. Furthermore, when you are present but your battery is dead, you enter a state of passive presence. You are nodding, you are smiling, but the lights are off behind your eyes. People sense this. They might ask, "Are you okay?" Or "You're quiet tonight," which only shines a spotlight on your struggle, making you feel even more exposed and misunderstood.
I want to touch on the specific nature of holiday conversation. It is often repetitive and surface level. How is work? When are you getting married? How are the kids? For someone who thrives on depth, who craves discussions about ideas, feelings, or the nuances of life, this loop of small talk is excruciating. It feels like eating empty calories. You are consuming conversation, but you remain starving for connection. I suspect this contributes to the feeling of being unseen. You are talking all night, moving your mouth, making sounds, yet no one has actually met you where you are. You are hidden in plain sight, buried under a mountain of pleasantries.
That metaphor of eating empty calories is perfect. The quiet temperament seeks nutrition and interaction. When the environment offers only the sugar rush of small talk, the quiet person feels malnourished. This feeling of being unseen is the core of the isolation. To be seen requires patience, quiet, and attention. 3 things that are in short supply during a holiday frenzy. The quiet person often plays the role of the listener, the observer, the anchor for everyone else's chaotic energy. They absorb the stories of others, but rarely find the space to exhale their own. They become a vessel for the holiday anxiety of others, leaving them heavy and completely alone in their experience.
There is also an element of nostalgia and grief that seems amplified for introspective people during this time. Quiet people often have a rich inner world where memory plays a significant role. The holidays mark the passage of time. They remind us of who is no longer at the table, of childhoods that have passed, of versions of ourselves that are gone. While the extroverted world is focused on the now of the party, the quiet person might be walking through the halls of their memory. This temporal disconnect, living in the past while physically in the present, creates a ghostly feeling of separation. You are haunted by memories while everyone else is opening gifts.
Yes, the ghostly feeling is a very accurate description of that psychological state. Introspection is a double-edged sword during the holidays. It allows for deep appreciation, but it also opens the door to existential reflection that doesn't fit the Jingle Bells narrative. When you are pondering the fragility of life or the complexity of family dynamics, and the room demands you wear a paper hat and blow a noisemaker, the absurdity of the situation can make you feel like an alien. You feel like a stranger in your own family because your internal reality is so vastly different from the external performance. That gap is where the loneliness lives.
We also have to consider the biological imperative for solitude. For many, solitude is not a preference, it is a regulation tool. It is how they process data and return to homeostasis. The holidays often frame solitude as sadness or failure. If you are alone on Christmas Eve, it is seen as a tragedy. But for the quiet person, stealing away for an hour of silence might be the most joyful part of the day. The problem arises when this need is cathologized by family members who say, "Don't be a Scrooge, come join us." How does this denial of biological need impact a person's mental state over the season?
When a person is consistently denied their biological need for regulation, they enter a state of chronic stress. Their cortisol levels rise. They become reactive, defensive, or totally numb. When family members pathologize this need, labeling it as rude or antisocial, it constitutes a form of gaslighting. The quiet person begins to doubt their own needs. They force themselves to stay in the room to appease others, engaging in self-betrayal. This self-betrayal is the ultimate isolator. When you abandon yourself to please the crowd, you are the loneliest person in the room because you have left your own side. You have sacrificed your well-being for their comfort.
So, if we accept that the holiday structure is often hostile to the quiet temperament, how do we reframe the experience? We cannot cancel the holidays, and we cannot fundamentally change our families, but we can change our strategy. It seems that the first step is recognizing that the feeling of isolation isn't a defect, it's a signal. It's a signal that the environment is mismatching the organism. Instead of trying to force the organism to change, perhaps we need to alter the environment, or at least how we navigate it. We need to validate the quiet holiday as a legitimate way to exist within the chaos.
Absolutely. Reframing requires boundary setting, which is terrifying but necessary. It means giving yourself permission to drive your own car so you can leave when you need to. It means booking a hotel room instead of staying in the crowded family house. It means saying, "I love you all, but I am going to take a walk alone for an hour." These are acts of self-preservation. When you protect your energy, you actually reduce your isolation because you are no longer resentful. You can engage for shorter bursts, but those bursts will be authentic. You move from being a hostage of the holidays to being a participant on your own terms.
I love the idea of authentic bursts. It suggests that we can find quiet connection even in a loud room. Perhaps it is about finding the one other person in the room who looks overwhelmed and sitting next to them, or focusing on a nonverbal activity, like helping in the kitchen or playing with the family pets. These are ways to be with people without the drain of performative conversation. It shifts the goal from being the life of the party to simply being present in a sustainable way. It changes the metric of success from volume to stability.
That is a beautiful strategy. Animals and children are often the refuge of the quiet person because they demand presence, not performance. They do not require small talk. Connecting on those levels validates the quiet person's way of being. And to our listeners who feel this isolation, understand that your ability to observe, to feel deeply, and to require depth is a gift, not a burden. The hollowness you feel is simply your soul telling you that it craves something real. Do not numb that feeling. Honor it by stepping back, by finding your silence, and by refusing to apologize for the way you are wired.
As we wrap up this broadcast, I hope this discussion has dismantled the idea that you are doing the holidays wrong. The isolation you feel is a byproduct of a loud culture clashing with a quiet nature. It is social performative burnout. It is biological battery depletion. And it is the pain of being unseen. But knowing this is the first step towards protecting yourself. You are not alone in your need for solitude. There is a vast community of quiet hearts feeling exactly what you are feeling right now, all across the world, looking for that same permission to just breathe.
Take that breath. Claim your space. If this season brings you silence, let it be a silence of restoration, not of loneliness. You do not need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your presence is enough, even if it is quiet, even if it is brief. Be gentle with yourself in the coming weeks. The most profound connection you can nurture this holiday season is the one with yourself. Once that is secure, the isolation begins to fade, replaced by a quiet, steady strength. Thank you for listening, and may you find your own version of peace this season.